Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Deen Street with me, Mohammed Solomon. Today's guest for a 5-minute short is Mohammed Luqman Ali. Today he did a lecture on the importance of dreams and the importance of Muslims telling their own stories. Could you expand a little bit about what lecture today was about? And Assalamu alaikum, by the way. Welcome to Deen Street.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you very much, Mohammed Sulaiman. I was really trying to impress upon people the importance of story and how we are the stories we tell ourselves. And if we tell ourselves stories which are true and have vitality and dynamism and a relationship with reality and ultimately with Allah, then we will be empowered and we will have purpose and we will have vision and we will have direction. And if we allow ourselves to be colonized and occupied by stories which don't synergize with our own value systems, then we will be thrown into complexes and to confusion. And I was also making the point that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his first function, social function, was as a storyteller, and he's told stories to inspire in people a dream of virtue, a dream that the human being comprises within himself or herself the attributes of the divine, and through actualizing those attributes we fulfill our potential, both individually and collectively. So without a discourse of story and dream, no society, no nation can truly become prosperous and become successful in any of its endeavors and enterprises. So storytelling is a macro sunnah. It's the sunnah within which all other sunnah are contextualized, should be contextualized. And without that macro sunnah of storytelling, not just as something that we tell, but something that we live, a living story, which is a community, all other sunnahs really can never fully come to fruition.
MashaAllah. How important would that be for the wider non-Muslim community to understand the narrative and the discourse from Muslims? I mean, how would that help in understanding?
Well, the situation as it currently stands is non-Muslims only have an access to Islam through doctrine and dogma and legal injunction. This is haram, this is halal, this is bid'ah. By us revitalizing story and dream, we will enable ourselves to humanize ourselves with non-Muslims. We will enable ourselves to forge a channel of effective dialogue and discourse with non-Muslims, which will break down barriers and which will actually demonstrate the beauty, the empathy, the mercy that is inherent in Islam, and for which reason we describe the message of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as rahmatul lil alamin, as a mercy for all the worlds. So it is crucial and critical that we revitalize the discourse of story and dream in Islam, because without that we actually are speaking in a language to society which they no longer understand. The reason why in Europe there's been a separation of church and state is because due to the great amount of bloodshed that's been shed in Europe, between Catholics and Protestants, in religion, the language of doctrine and dogma has really become redundant here. That's why secularism, atheism has arisen. So the only effective language for us is the language of story and the language of dream, which is universal, timeless story, which every human being needs and appreciates.
MashaAllah. What about people though who would say, for example, we just have to stick to Quran and Sunnah. The stories of the Quran are enough. The stories of the Hadith are enough. These are the best of stories given by the best of men from the best generation. What you're doing now is bid'ah. And it really hasn't got a role in forging a new Muslim identity to being assimilating in the West. For example, in terms of art and culture, and the aspect you spoke about today, we know the Taliban destroyed the Buddha. There's some Muslims in Egypt who want to pull down the pyramids. What would you say to these people?
I would say to them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran has very clearly paid tribute to the power of story and dream, and has abbreviated in the Quran the entire narrative, meta-narrative and story of humanity. Therefore, the Quran licenses us and indeed demands of us that we engage with story and dream. Both the story and dream of the virtuous as well as the story and dream of the iniquitous. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks to us so much of the stories of Ad and Thamud and Fir'aun. So these stories are valuable to us because they're cautionary. They tell us what we shouldn't be doing and where we shouldn't be going. So it's true that the stories that we have in the Quran are enough, but the interpretation of those stories demand that we engage with story, universal story, and universal dream, and that we actually, for the sake of ourselves and for our younger generations, we actually make conversant what the dream of Islam is. What is the dream of Islam? It is not a good situation that our young people are conversant in the understanding of what the American dream is, but when you ask them what the dream of Islam is, they fall silent. That is an indictment on us, that we have not kept vital the story and dream of Islam in such a way that it is transmissible to later generations. And we'll be asked about that, because the Quran almost identifies itself with being a story in its entirety.
In terms of young people as well, you touched on in the lecture about, in the question and answers about, you talked about the griot, and you talked about the storytellers, and Islamic literature, past Islamic literature, folklore. How important is that, for example, for the rap music and that, to create a new narrative that helps young people deal with the fact that they are spiritual as well as physiological beings in a very technologically fastly changing world. We're bombarded with electrons and electrical stuff and technology. How does the storytelling help in that respect?
Well, I think Muslims have a huge role to play in holding hip hop accountable to its roots, to making sure hip hop continues to serve its founding principles, which are personal transformation, social development and change, and therefore I think these things are essential as points of engagement for Muslims, but they need to be informed by the Quran in a prophetic way, and I think that's happening. I mean, I see across the world that there are a lot of quite admirable and heartening enterprises taking place where Muslims are doing this. Not so long ago, the fourth largest advertising agency in the world predicted that the next huge wave of culture to sweep the entire world will be Muslim world culture. They said they were advising their clients, Coca-Cola, Nestle, they were advising them that this next wave of world culture will come from Muslims, and it will be greater in its impact than African American culture has been. So imagine these are not Muslims. This is the fourth largest advertising agency in the world is speaking about that and encouraging its clients to think about the Muslim market. So if people like that have that realization, what should our realization be about our role in influencing popular culture and the appeal of Islamic art and heritage? Go to any major capital in the world, and you will find Islamic art at the highest level on museums and celebrated and exchanged for millions of dollars. But mainly that's by non-Muslims, because Muslims do not understand the value of cultural capital and of conceptual resources that are required to sustain a dynamic discourse of story and dream.
I mean, on that point, I know that at the moment there's a lot. I think it's UNESCO or the French are trying to preserve the Arabic writers from Timbuktu, which are all crumbling and falling apart, and the people in that part of the world don't seem to be engaged in that preservation of their culture. Is this kind of a modern indictment also of Muslims in a modern sense, where we don't seem to value our culture and our heritage as well?
It is. Like I was saying in my talk, Muslims have created a curious beast, which I dub capital Islam. It's not capitalism, it's a merger between capitalism and Islam, whereby our entire focus seems to be material consumerism. And we've lost sight of the value of our own resources. To give you an example, at the time when the pomegranate juice market was blowing wide open, non-Muslims were making millions, if not billions, on pomegranate juice. What were Muslims doing, and certainly in this country? They were copycatting Coca-Cola. They were creating a Coca-Cola, Qibla Cola, Mecca Cola. When pomegranate juice, the health properties of pomegranate juice, the value of pomegranate juice and its appreciation in the West was growing. So why is it we have dispossessed ourselves of the very riches and resources that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with through our art, through our culture? Another example is the Alhambra. Most Muslims don't know that the Alhambra is the most visited tourist attraction in Europe. This is a Muslim monument. It's the most visited tourist attraction in Europe, which should tell us something about the preciousness of the aesthetic capital and cultural capital that we have within the Muslim tradition. This Alhambra was built by a mixture of African, Arab, European Muslims, a synthesis of all those cultures.
Would you then say though that is, because you mentioned saying that we still have, this is an example still to this day.
Yes, this example.
Of the only time of a fusion of Islamic and European culture where it was fused in a kind of a harmonious sense. Yeah. Do we really believe that's replicable today? Do you really think that that can still happen?
Yes. I think I was describing in Alhambra as a time capsule that the Muslims of 500-600 years ago left for us. And they didn't bury it in the ground that we have to go and dig it up. They left it right out in the open for us to take lessons from. Yet in Europe, Muslims have not taken lessons from the Alhambra. They have not created endowments of gardens influenced by Islamic aesthetic and design within their towns and cities and neighborhoods that would serve to prove to demonstrate the humanity and the beauty and the dream of Islam.
How important are women to the telling of the Islamic, of weaving of the Islamic story into the fabric of the consciousness of modern society? How important is the role that women have played in that? You talk of Rumi, you talk of all these past, but is there any renowned women, artists? I know in Pakistan, for example, there was these fantastic women dancers, beautiful dancing that they did. But then when Zia al-Haq came in, he banned that dance and said, "Oh, this dance it's not Islamic; it's a Hindu influence thing." And so these dancers they tried to wipe these dancers out. It's only now they're bringing them back in. So, how important is the role of women in what you were discussing today?
It's of paramount importance because part of the reason why a discourse of dream and story has not remained vital in Islam is due to the marginalization of not only women but of the feminine. We have been beguiled by this idea that hard power, masculine power, is the most effective power. But in fact, masculine power, or the power of reason, unnurtured by the power of the feminine, the power of inspiration, the power of revelation, is actually...
Is that back to Rahim and Rahman, is it?
Rahim and Rahman. It goes back to Tawheed. Mm-hmm. Allah very clearly says in the Quran that mercy and love are derived of the conjunction of the feminine and masculine, of men and women. You have no social partnership between the man and the woman, between the masculine and feminine. Your society is devoid of love and mercy. It's very clear in the Quran. Now we Muslims, when we read that verse, we think it's only about marriage. It's not just about marriage. It's about social partnership. It's about a collegiate relationship between Muslim and women and building a society, and cross-fertilizing each other's ideas and stories and dreams in a way that is holistic. holistic.
Okay, could you talk a bit to the viewers about your theatre? Is it Khayal?
Khayal Theatre.
Yeah, could you talk about that history quickly, how it came about, and if anything's coming up, or tell us about that.
Yeah, well, Khayal Theatre basically arose out of my realization that we have a problem, that the discourse of story and dream is undernourished, underdeveloped, and as a result we are unable to communicate, we're unable to tell our story and relate our dream in a compelling way, both within our community and outside of our community. So we founded this theatre company which takes stories from right across the Muslim world. We're not concerned with sectarianism, we're not concerned with this ethnicity or that ethnicity or that nationality, this nationality. We take stories from Muslim Africa, stories from Muslim China, from the Indian subcontinent, from the Arab world, from the Caucasus, and we adapt them either as performance storytelling presentations or as plays, short plays, medium, long plays, and we take them into communities, both Muslim communities and non-Muslim communities. I mean, we're invited to conferences, Methodist conferences, for instance. In fact, not long ago, I went to a Methodist conference and presented one of our plays. When it came time to evaluating the content of the conference, our play by Muslims with adaptations of Muslim stories was rated the highest contribution to the conference. So through engaging with this language of story and dream, we're able to get over or bridge this barrier and get around this polarization that exists. And we're using the tool of minimum resistance, not maximum resistance. Muslims seem to be intent on using the path of maximum resistance with non-Muslims, speaking them in the language of haram and halal and kufr and whatever. When if we use story, we can actually neutralize a lot of the antipathy towards us, because people will be able to empathize with us. Anyway, our next piece of work we're doing is we're contributing to the British Museum's Hajj exhibition. So we will be delivering all of the primary school education workshops, drama workshops, for all the primary schools that will come to the British Museum for the Hajj exhibition. And on the 9th of March, we will also be delivering special performances on a late evening opening of the British Museum's Hajj exhibition for wider audiences, which will explore universal human quest and pilgrimage. So, yeah, watch this space.
How important is the spiritual aspect to that in terms of the stories and the connection? How important is that?
Well,
joining these dots up and making these connections. Because the reason why I'm saying that is because I'm looking across the world. I'm seeing the Occupy movement. I'm seeing people rising up against corporate greed, and people saying that we want banking system. We want a banking system that it's not about usury and ripping people. We want community-based banks. And I see this kind of sweeping feeling of, as a natural mystic, as Bob Marley might say, it's going sweeping through the air, and people wanting something like a spiritual, something tangible now, no more 2.5. The American dream is to have a car and all that. Like something tangible, something moving away from greed. How important is the Islamic storytelling and the lecture you gave today, and the spiritual feeling that's arising in the breasts of humans all over the world? The Arab Spring, for example. How important is that we have the right kind of message and story to put across in that regard?
Well, if I have one, how should I describe it?
Dream.
Yeah, it's not dream. No, it's a regret.
Oh, regret.
Because the world has now woken up to the fact that the king has no clothes. The king is not wearing any clothes. And people's hearts and ears are open in a way they weren't open before. People are questioning. People are critical. People are no longer beguiled and fascinated with the neoliberal capitalist system. They envisaged the emergence of a more holistic, humanistic system. Now, this would have been a huge opportunity for Muslims in Islam, and it could still be. But due to the fact that our discourse and story of dream is underdeveloped, and our originative and creative imagination has not been brought to bear on these problems, it is going to be very difficult for us to present alternatives. Because the only language that we are equipped with to do it with at the moment is dogma and doctrine, usually as haram. But that's not enough.
You talked of mythos and
logos.
And logos, yeah.
We're speaking in the language of logos. We need to be speaking in
Can you explain that a bit more?
Well,
mythos and logos.
Logos is to do with our rational appreciation of things, our empirical, rational appreciation of the world. Mythos is about a super-rational appreciation of the world, a timeless super-rational appreciation of the world, which is communicated through similes and metaphors and parables, which are not restricted geographically or chronologically. So that's why all the prophets spoke in story and discourse. And Jesus, for instance, coming up to Christmas, spoke in the language of parables, because he knew that was the best way of opening people's spiritual eyes and ears to the truth. So I think we are living in a time of great opportunity. And if we are successful in reinvigorating a discourse of story and dream, and through creative and originative imagination, presenting alternatives to the current economic status quo, to the environmental degradation, and so forth, there will be automatic buy-in. People won't have any choice because it will be irresistible and compelling. But sadly, we have not made that investment, and we need to start making that investment very quickly. It is not superficial and superfluous to create a piece of art. Art is what inspired the scientists. It wasn't the other way around. Schubert, in European terms, the symphonies of Schubert, Bach, Wagner, Beethoven. These are if you like, the metaphysics underlying science. And, we say music is haram.
Yeah.
So we automatically dismiss the very roots of things which Muslims so aspire to. We sort of castigated the foundations of it instead of understanding it, and then saying, well, okay, how can we as Muslims develop or redevelop those resources, those artistic, those conceptual resources, which will drive our science? Why has the Muslim science innovated? It innovated, had incredible innovations 300, 400, 500 years ago and beyond, because there was that connection, there was that understanding of how the super rational inspires the rational. So our analysis of the West has been wrong. We need to review our analysis of the West within the context of the Muslim tradition in order to unlock this paradigm this cul-de-sac that we've trapped ourselves in, so that we're not suffering from this software conflict of, on one hand, Western stories and dreams, not all of them are non-Islamic, but Western stories and dreams conflicting with Islamic doctrine and dogma. I actually think there's a trauma. There's a trauma going on in the Muslim mind. And there's that trauma, and we should resolve that trauma through reinvigorating story and dream, and seeing how the dream of Ibrahim alayhi salam, the dream of Yusuf alayhi salam, the dream of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam are direct commandments to us to dream and to actualize those the substance of those dreams within our own lives. And unless we do that, we'll die.
And just quickly, a lot of young people look at the website and they're very much into the website. What would you have for them in terms of the fact there's not a lot of Muslim youth doing humanities courses or doing dance or creative art? Maybe you might say something that could inspire a young person to think, yeah, that's what I wanted to do, but no one's ever said I could do it. 1 second, not there.
Well, I would say I'm an artist, I'm a theatre producer, I'm a playwright, and I need more of you guys on board. I need more of you, more young people as artists to work with. I need more actors. I need more storytellers. I need more musicians. I need more calligraphers and photographers. The Muslim community needs you, and you can empower not only the Muslim community but wider society in a way which you may not be able to imagine now. but which is actually crucial for the entire world. That we have your creativity and we have your talents and the investment of your energy and your time and your conviction. You can save the world. That's quite simply that. You can save the world through engaging in artistic and creative fields.
Shukran. Mohammed Luqman, thank you so much for your time. Inshallah, hope to see you again soon on Deen Street TV.
Sure.
Assalamu alaikum.